It is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys.
Please clap. Please clap. Please.
Ooh. What happened there?
I don't know, but
it doesn't matter.
that is not Rich Little or even Rich Little by Rich Little standards. I was
not Henny Youngman.
It's not. It's more Henny Youngman. Take my wife, please.
Take my Mountain Dew.
Take my Mountain Dew. I don't know. Maybe he should just read the script.
Okay, like this.
Like
Republican presidential. Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance making his first solo appearance on the campaign trail yesterday in his home state of Ohio. That was his home state. And then later in Virginia, and the senator accused Vice President Kamala Harris of not sounding grateful enough to be an American.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Wow.
Deliverance.
And
by the way, speaking of Jesus, did you hear the Southern Baptist Convention, Mika, fired a guy? Let me see if I have it. Fired a guy for thanking Joe Biden for putting country over himself. He was like a leader of the Southern Baptist Convention. And because he actually said, basically, regardless of party, we should be grateful for Joe Biden putting his country over his personal ambition. They fired him that day. That is shameful. Russell Moore, who used to hold the position, and also left the position because Russell preferred telling the truth about Donald Trump. It's just really sad. And the guy that was leading the charge also was angry because this person that got fired yesterday opposed jailing women who had abortions. So that's where we are. That's where we are. Good luck with that this fall.
We're going to have a little more on that, but first, here's what J.D. Vance had to say. Let's listen.
When I see her give a speech, and she talks about the history of this country, not with appreciation, but with condemnation. But if you want to lead this country, you should feel grateful for it. You should feel a sense of gratitude. And I never hear that gratitude come through when I listen to Kamala Harris. I don't know Kamala. I served in the United States Marine Corps, and I built a business. What the hell have you done other than collect a government check for the past 20 years?
Prosecuted criminals and, served as attorney general, served as a U.S. senator, served as vice president. I guess, yeah. Just
Wait a second, Mika. Are you saying that she was prosecuting prosecuting criminals?
Criminals. Mm-hmm.
While J.D. Vance was wearing his little tech vest, getting paid millions and millions of dollars by Peter Thiel, and saying, I love San Francisco, and calling Donald Trump Hitler? Is that what he's saying? Like, does he really want to compare his record to her record? Because it's not really good. It's not really good if you look at what's happened over the past several years. And the guy has just completely flip-flopped from going, he may be America's Hitler, to suddenly saying that he's like the future. It's ridiculous.
I think this is going to be a real challenge. Maybe not. Some people are so mean they can't see beyond themselves. But Mara Gay, to run against Kamala Harris, who is accomplished, who is a black woman, and I think they're going to bump into walls, let's just put it that way, along the way as they try and run against her. The Republicans, the right-wing media, I was watching some yesterday, making fun of her voice. I mean, we're talking middle school stuff. And it's not a good look. I don't know how people respond to this, but they seem to be grasping, and that is actually what this change has created in terms of a dynamic now of a race between Donald J. Trump and Kamala Harris. It's complicated.
You know, I guess in not quite knowing what the line of attack should be, the Republicans in 2024, their first instinct is just to be racist and sexist. I guess that's
right.
like a tick that they've developed at this point. You know, the problem for J.D. Vance and for the Trump campaign is that any voter who is going to be responding to that by voting for them was probably not going to vote for the Democrats anyway. So what they're actually doing is they are motivating every Democratic voter, every fence sitter, every independent voter, and people who just are disgusted by racism and sexism and want to see a multiracial democracy continue to the polls. You know, when the AKAs hear that, they're going to march in formation to the poll. So that's the contribution that J.D. Vance is making. I mean, saying you should be grateful for this country, it's just all that is a dog whistle calling her uppity. Every black voter in America knows that. So this is really not helping his case, but I guess that's just their go-to line. If when all else fails, just try racism.
Well, and how rich, coming from a guy who is on a ticket that has constantly bashed the USA, that has constantly said the American dream is dead, that has constantly said that the men and women that are in the United States Armed Services are weak and woke when they are stronger than they've ever been relative to the rest of the world. How ironic that you've got a guy that actually is part of a ticket. And look at their words, not mine. Look at their words. That's done nothing but tear down the United States of America. Saying that Kamala Harris seems like an ingrate? Donald Trump inherited like $400 million from his daddy. Like, you talk about a silver spoon. Like, he's been given everything anybody could be given in this country. And all he does is trash it. All he does is say that this is a horrible country. All he says is it's a weak country. It's a terrible country, and only he can save it. I mean, the hypocrisy, Jonathan, is terrible. And these veiled attacks that aren't really that veiled, they already this is the problem with J.D. Vance as a vice presidential pick, and I think they already know it now. The problem is they had all those voters after Charlottesville. All the dog whistles, they had that after Charlottesville when Donald Trump said they're good people on both sides. They had those voters. They need to get the voters now in the suburbs of Atlanta, in the suburbs of Milwaukee, in the suburbs of Philly, in the suburbs of Detroit. That doesn't get them there. So I think this race is going to get even more interesting, and I just wonder if they are capable of adjusting to doing what they need to do to actually bring new voters into the fold.
Yeah, the Vance pick doubled down on the voters they already had. And yes, maybe it helps them in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, but this is just going further on MAGA. That's not expanding the tent at all. And now you have, on the Democratic side, we know that President Biden had been struggling with young voters, progressive voters, voters of colors, black and Latino. Vice President Harris has a chance to potentially reverse that. And while the Trump-Vance ticket shows no ability now to potentially have new outreach to those voters, we are also seeing a recycling of some of the Michelle Obama attack lines. That's what that line felt like from J.D. Vance. And at least in these first couple of days, a real struggle to sharpen what they're going to say about Kamala Harris. For example, the NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, put out a memo yesterday suggesting attack lines, among them that Harris sometimes laughs at, quote, inappropriate moments. They also, this is real, they criticized her love of Venn diagrams. Now, how that is going to resonate with any voter, I mean, we could create a Venn diagram, perhaps, of people who are upset by laughing and diagrams. Mike Barnicle, that's going to be a pretty small number.
What did you know about the Venn diagram, and when did you know it, ma'am? I mean, come on. They sound a little desperate.
You know, the interesting thing about what you just read and what we just saw from J.D. Vance on the screen is this is an 8-year-old playbook in terms of our politics that people are familiar with, that Donald Trump brought to the scene, public scene, when he first ran for president in 2016. But it's been his playbook for at least 40 years. And it's been filled with everything that you just indicated. You know, sly racism, bitterness, resentment, talking America down. No one's as good as they are. Everybody's deficient in some aspect or another. This is an old and tired playbook. And what you just read, you know, I hadn't thought about the Venn diagram stuff.
That's
could
a game
pack
changer.
punch.
That is a game
Handled
changer.
properly, that could pack a punch.
That really could. I mean, the thing is, the idea, Mika, is that if you want to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, you have to get swing voters. You have to get them in the suburbs. And this sort of talk doesn't get Republicans those votes. It just doesn't. They may be playing cynically to try, I don't know, maybe they think that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and Republicans that put out, racist statements, maybe they think cynically that that's going to help them in rural America. I would hope not. But it's certainly not going to help them with the sort of swing voters they need to get. And again, if they want to win, it's what we said leading into 2020. If they want to win, they have to expand their electorate. They're just not doing that. And J.D. Vance, that's why J.D. Vance never made any sense to me, because he doesn't expand the electorate like Nikki Haley would, like the governor of Virginia, what's his name?
Glenn Youngkin.
How quickly we forget. Glenn Youngkin would have done. There would have been people like that would have made people in the suburbs of Atlanta go, oh, okay, yeah, I can vote for him. Just like Mike Pence did that with evangelicals. But they just didn't do it. They doubled down on Trumpism. We'll see how it works.